today we are trying to do the same thing for monetary economy, so basically the same mechanism, so our purpose is to analyze savings-induced growth in the monetary economy. So this is point number 5. So you see, I need 4 steps in preparation. Usually, I will in my classes, I will take about 8 hours or so to go through this material. More advanced students will do this very fast, right? In some cases, it will be just a reminder of things that you should have heard about or learned in other classes. So we'll start through by discussing a few basic mechanisms of the monetary economy, particularly arbitrage processes, and from there on, then we can reconstruct a time structure of production in equilibrium. So time structure of production basically is this, what we discussed yesterday, a roundabout production process. This would be a scheme of the time structure of production. And so we need these preparatory steps in order to reconstruct this for monetary economy. And then finally, we can discuss savings-based growth and also the opposite, dissaving, and conclude by revisiting very briefly the paradox of savings. Okay, so let's start off with some basic principles. I won't go into value theory and so on. We'll start simply with arbitrage processes. Arbitrage is human activity that seeks to leave markets where conditions are worse in order to join markets where conditions are better. And the most basic setting would be arbitrage through trade, in which we leave a market where the price is the that we want to sell is where there are differences in prices. So here let's say we have 2 markets for apples. One market in Bucharest, and then there's another market in a neighboring town. So the price on one market is higher than on the other market. So this gives then an incentive for entrepreneurs to act in a way that ultimately brings about an equalization of those 2 prices. So what might entrepreneurs do? They might go and buy the good on the market where it is less expensive and then resell it on the market where it's more expensive. Right? So we have an increase of demand on that market and then an increased supply of this on this market, and the result is that the price tends to be equalized. Right? As a consequence of arbitrage activities, the spread between the 2 prices diminishes, and in the extreme case, it becomes completely equal. So we have here one consequence of arbitrage, which is the equalization of price, is also called in economics the law of one price. Right? The same good tends to have the same price on all markets, because as soon as the good has different prices, there's an opportunity for entrepreneurs to step in, buy the good there where it costs less, instead of where it costs more. Okay? Now this is, there are various consequences that follow from this, and I don't have time to go into this, but I'll just point out 2 consequences that are important from a macroeconomic perspective. The first one is that it's actually beneficial from an overall perspective to have one price for the same good, because as soon as you have different prices, the good tends to be wasted on the market where it costs less, and the consumption of the good is overly restrictive in the market where it costs more. Right? Take, for example, let's say water. If water costs 100 euros per liter on one market and 10 cents per liter on another market, then on this market people will do all kinds of things with water. They will, with fresh water, right? They will wash their cars and water barrels and so on. And on the other market, people might not even have enough water to drink. So it's overly restricted on one segment, there's wasteful employment on the other market. So an equal price creates an equal hurdle for all users of water, so to minimize waste of the resource. This is an aggregate advantage. The second advantage is, and this is something that cannot be seen from the scheme, is that the overall market, the overall volume of the exchange tends to be maximized. And the basic reason is that, so these are two partial markets, two segments of the overall market of that good. And as we see, the maximum volume that can be exchanged is this one. This is the equilibrium volume. It's impossible to exchange any larger volume because as soon as the price gets higher, right, then we get a surplus. Supply is higher than demand, so what would be the quantity that would be exchanged in this case? Well, it would be this quantity. Okay. As soon as the price is lower, we get a short supply of the good. While demand is higher than supply, and the actual quantity that would be exchanged is this quantity. So only in the equilibrium case is the quantity that is being exchanged is maximum. Now, arbitrage tends to create one price for the same good, that is, it brings the overall market toward its equilibrium. Therefore, arbitrage tends to maximize the overall volume of the market. Now, why is this significant from a macroeconomic perspective? Because if the exchange is, the volume of exchange is maximized, it means that the division of labor is maximized. The division of labor is one of those factors that create positive externalities, right, that create growth, one of the growth factors. Okay, so it's very briefly said. And we don't have time to go to the detailed demonstration, right, because we didn't really talk about the division of labor. Okay, so arbitrage is not just, right, an equalization of prices, it has positive externalities, a positive impact, positive growth impact on the economy. Okay, so here we have the basic trading settings. So in markets, you can construct this also for markets not only in place A and place B. You can also say markets for apples, let's say in June 2011 and in August 2011. So arbitrage can also be intertemporal. I might buy apples here now when they cost less and sell them in the future when they cost more. I can also do the opposite. Apples cost more now and I expect them to cost less in the future. And I can bring about an arbitrage. It's a little bit more complicated. It goes through short setting. Again, I don't have time to go into this right now, but just you notice that that's possible in the sort of combination. Okay, so this is arbitrage through trade. And of course, that's the most basic form of arbitrage, but it's not the most important one in a market economy. The most important one in a market economy is arbitrage through investment. Now, what is an investment? Well, it's the expenditure of some sum of money on factors of production in view of creating a product so we have here the process stretched out in time. We purchase the factor of production, and these factors of production are then transformed. So we hire labor and so on, buy raw materials, intermediate products, tools, and so on. And they transform. Labor transforms all these other factors of production, and finally creates a product that we sell at a later point of time. Okay. So we have here two streams of payment. We have one payment that concerns the purchase of the factors of production. This we call our cost of production, and it's expenditure on factors of production. And at a later moment, we sell our product in the market economy. So here we have revenue. And in both cases, we have markets. We have here factor markets, and we have here product markets. Strictly speaking, we have as many markets here as we have factors of production. We have as many markets here as we have products. So I'll simplify. So I'm positing, okay, we have just one type of product, and have one type of factor that is of course fictitious, but right, draw just one market scheme in order to represent all markets, because basically the same thing goes on in all markets. Okay, so it's clear that the simple arbitrage scheme that we just discussed cannot be applied to this case. Why? Because it's not the same good. Here we have product, here we have factors of production. It's not the same good. So how can we say, for example, if we assemble a car and we hire labor, the car we sell for 10,000, 20,000 euros, and we hire labor for 20 euros an hour in Romania for 50 cents per hour. And buy various raw materials. How can we say that we can arbitrage between the two? Not directly. Right? It's not that we buy labor here and sell labor later. That's not what we do. And so the arbitrage process is a little bit more complicated. But there is a common good that is traded in all, or that is being used in all investment processes, and that is capital, or savings, monetary economy. So what we have actually, what we can do in analyzing arbitrage is concerning the use of capital in different investment projects. Let's say if here an investment project that concerns the production of orange juice, and here we have an investment project that concerns the production of trousers. So we buy here factors of production needed for the production of trousers. Let's say we spend how much? $90 units here, and we spend 100 units of money here. So we spend 95 units of money here to buy the factors of production needed to create trousers, and we hire labor, specific labor for this. We buy tissue and so on, buy maybe some sewing machines, and here we buy the factors of production needed to make oranges in particular, maybe a couple of squeezes and so on, bottles. Right? And then eventually we sell bottled orange juice for 110 units of money. So maybe, for example, 110,000 euros is our selling proceeds, and 105,000 euros are our expenditure for the factor of production. For trousers, it's that. Okay? So in this case, I mean, there are various complications that we could consider, but I won't do this because that's not my main topic. Right? We'll just consider and take the most naive view on this, which is sufficient for our purposes. Obviously, here we have a different return on capital in the two investment projects. Right? We earn on trousers, we earn surplus or a net revenue of 35 units on an investment of 95. That is, our return on investment is larger than 35%. Okay. And here we have a net revenue of 5 units of money on an investment of 105, and this means that our return on investment is smaller than 5%. In both investment projects, we use capital. Monetary capital. Spend euros here, dollars here, and it's the same type of money in the other project. Here it gives us a higher return than that. So therefore, there are now incentives in place to do what? Well, to take money out of this production process and invest it in that kind of investment project. If we consider that we have some sort of a static setting, right? I mean, consumer preferences are stable and so on, right? Factors don't move, then we could always reinvest a part of these 110. We could always reinvest 105 out of these 110 in the next period, right? So we start producing, let's say, throughout 2011, we produce our orange juice, sell it for 110. The next period, so 2012, we buy again factors of production for 105, and at the end of the year we have again orange juice that we sell for 110. Right? We do this again and again and again. Right? Always reinvesting a part of this. What we reinvest are in fact the savings created within the same thing here, right? We can always, out of these 130, we can reinvest 95 in a static setting, right? In the production of trousers, so we do this again and again. Now, because the return on capital is lower here than there, so we have an incentive not to reinvest all of the 105 in this process, but to invest part of that capital that we have saved out of this project in the production of trousers. We can do this in various ways. Either we can set up our own trouser factory, right? Or we can create a joint venture with the existing trouser producer, etc., etc. So there are various organizational forms that we are not interested in right now because we're reasoning from a macroeconomic perspective. And so what could happen is the following. We invest now a larger amount of money here. Let's say invest 120 and reduce our, so we invest 25 units more and we reduce our investment here to 80. And as a consequence, our revenue here will fall to, let's say, 96, and here our revenue will increase to 144. Now, of course, I've chosen this numerical example in order to illustrate a perfect equilibration process, because what we have in this case is here now a net revenue of 16 units of money that we earn on an initial investment of 80, so we have a 20% return. And here we have a net revenue of 24 units of money earned on an initial investment of 120 is also 20%. And so we have the same type of process that we analyzed before in the trade setting, also from the point of view of investment. Why is this? Okay, so this is just a couple of numbers that are plotted on the whiteboard. But why is this a typical result? What is happening here? The increased investment in trouser production so increases our cost. It also increases our revenue because we have more product. We have more trousers that we can sell. But the revenue that we generate decreases relative to cost. Why is this so? Ultimately, it's so because at some point the market for trousers gets saturated. So our revenue results from two factors, from the quantity that we sell and from the price that we realize. Right? The higher is the quantity that we sell, if we sell a higher quantity, right, then the price will drop. Right? So the revenue is of course the product of price times quantity sold. And so we have these two things moving in the opposite direction. The quantity increases, therefore the revenue should increase, but the price drops, therefore the revenue tends to diminish. And eventually, because the market gets saturated, revenue will drop relative to the rise of cost. That's the basic point. Of course, there can be lots of complications. You might say in the short run, let's say if the investment is not sufficiently large, this can happen. It can happen that the return actually increases in the short run, but ultimately there's a saturation and the return therefore will drop. And we have the opposite here. If we reduce our expenditure on factors of production, of course our costs will diminish. So we reduce our supply. It's the opposite process, right? We move from here to here. We sell a lower quantity, but we sell it at a higher price. Now, in my example here, this has led to a drop of our revenue, but the revenue does not drop quite as much as our costs. That's the crucial thing. That is not always the case. Right? In some cases, it's not so. For example, if you have a company that sells as here orange juice, and let's say there are 1,000 other competitors on the market. Typically, it's not the case that the price for your product will then increase significantly. Usually you have just a reduced volume, so your revenue falls almost as much or even more than your cost. Okay, so in that case it doesn't work. But when we come to being about, let's say, the large producer of orange juice or something like this, then actually the price will increase sufficiently because you have the elasticity of demand that will be in such a way. And in that case, the reduced production will entail a reduction of revenue that is less strong than the reduction of cost. So the overall one, again, right, so I'm doing this very fast. Usually it takes me about 2 hours to present this, and 3 hours if I want to go through all complications. But I just want to present you the preparatory steps of the argument. The crucial point is the following. In arbitrage through investment projects, right, all investment projects are related. Reduced investment in any line of business tends to increase the return of investment in that line of business. Increased investment in any line of business tends to diminish the return. That's the crucial thing. Right? So as soon as you have differences, different returns on investment in different lines of business, an arbitrage process sets in, takes capital out of the one line of business where capital has a lower return and invests it in the other line of business where capital has a higher return, until both tend to have the same return. That would be a situation of equilibrium. Okay? Okay, get to point number 3. We can do, so point number 3 is just, we derive a couple of conclusions from this thesis, because I've not really demonstrated it. But they say, okay, this is correct, but I've just asserted. What does this imply? Well, it implies, first of all, a very particular view of competition. Those of you who have studying economics or business, well, you have at least had a microeconomics class. And as you know, in microeconomics, competition is being defined relative to a single market in which we trade one homogeneous good produced by a great number of atomistically small producers. Right? That's a neoclassical theory of competition. Here we see, from this analysis of arbitrage processes, that competition actually concerns the relationship between markets for completely different goods. It's not the case that only orange producer 1 and orange producer 2, orange producer 3 are in competition. Of course they are in competition. Competition is particularly strong between them because there's a very strong substitution relationship between orange juice 1 and orange juice 2. But we see there's also competition between the orange juice producers and the trouser producers and the car producers and the lamp producers and the table producers. All producers are in competition in the market economy. Because all producers ultimately are in competition for 2 things: consumer expenditure and capital. All producers vie for consumer expenditure. All the money that has been spent on the lamp or on this table has not been spent, ipso facto, on orange juice, on trousers. Right? So our budget is limited, unfortunately, as we know. And so this creates automatically a competition between all producers of different kinds of goods. Right? So they are completely dissimilar on the physical level. Right? So lesson number, okay. Secondly, all production processes compete for capital. Capital that is invested for the production of lamps is not available for the production of tables, etc., etc. Okay, so the conclusion then is that the competitive process in the market economy cannot be defined with respect to a single market. And of course, we are free to define things as we wish, but then there's a very important aspect of reality that completely escapes from our definition. And the fact is, all markets are in competition for the reasons that we've just stated. All markets are in competition. So competition is an overall process that encompasses all markets. And therefore, Austrian economists are not particularly concerned about the structure in any single market. Right? So for neoclassical economists, as soon as there are not a sufficient number of competitors in the market for oranges or trousers, that's monopoly, things might screw up and so on, there's no more competition. Whereas the Austrians are completely relaxed and say, well, what the heck? There's just one single producer of trousers. Well, that might be the most efficient way to organize the production of trousers. It's not that he's not in competition, he's still in competition. He has to compete for capital, and he has to compete for consumer expenditure. And there are also other things that he has to compete for that it didn't go into factors of production, for example. He needs labor, he needs raw materials, and these same factors of production can be used in other lines of business too. So he needs to compete, even if he's the only one who produces a single type of good or a single type of service. It's not a concern from the point of view of Austrian economics. Okay. Second conclusion that we need to draw is relative to coordination. So we we speak of coordination when there is an adjustment of the activities of different participants to the market economy. Here the adjustment that we see is adjustment between producers and consumers. Consumers have been spending a relatively large amount of money on trousers and relatively less money on orange juice. And the consequence is that producers adjust the quantities that are being created of these goods. Because consumers spend more on trousers, there are more trousers tend to be produced, and less orange juice gets to be produced. So production follows consumer expenditure. Consumers lead, consumer expenditure leads the allocation of capital in a market economy. So that's what we call the coordination between producers and consumers. Now, there's not only a coordination between producers and consumers, there's also coordination amongst producers, and this brings us to the time structure of production. So far in our analysis, we've only considered one step or one stage production processes. Production of orange juice, production of trousers. But again, these are primitive economies. What we have in developed economies are multi-stage production processes. And so we have the principle of roundabout production that we discussed yesterday. So here then, we have, as I told you yesterday, we have here, let's say we have here consumer expenditure at some point of time. So in this stage of production are consumer goods industries. And these consumer goods industries are being served by suppliers that create intermediate goods and capital goods before it gets to the production of those consumer goods. Right? For example, we have orange juice, but there's also some guys who actually plant the trees and pluck the oranges. So here we would have, for example, pluck the oranges, a stage of production, plucking the oranges, putting them into boxes and sending them to the orange juice factories. Okay. Here we would have the stage of production might be a planting of a tree. Here we might have a stage of production, research and development in the optimal production of orange trees and so on. Right? Or again, car production. Here we have whatever steel factory or machine tool factory, iron ore production and so on. Right? So different stages. So in those here we have the production of producer goods. And they are related through payments. Right? So consumers spend whatever an amount of money, let's say 120 as in my example yesterday. The consumer goods industries spend some amount of money. Well, I put here 110. Let's put 100. Okay. They spend 100 units of money on what? Well, on the products created by the companies operating in that stage of production. Okay. these companies themselves need factors of production, in particular other producers' goods, so they spend some money here, let's say 70 units of money. That amount of money that is cost of production for those entrepreneurs here is revenue for entrepreneurs in that stage of production. Okay, so we have their revenue and they themselves spend money, let's say 40, and here they spend 20. Okay. Now, of course, companies also spend money, not only, as we have seen yesterday, and as you know, the companies not only spend money on the products being created in previous stages of production, but they also spend money on original factor of production. Like consumer goods industries not only use the machine tools and so on created by their suppliers, they also hire laborers and they also use themselves raw material. So let's say we have here another expenditure on original factors would be, let's say 5, and here we would have an expenditure on original factors 15, and here we would have original factor spending of 20, and here we would have original factor spending of 10. Right? And this revenue here, because there is no higher stage of production, would be spent on original factors with 20 units of would be their revenue exclusively. Okay? Now, what I will do now and what follows is I will get rid of this complication here in order to facilitate my numerical example. What I will suppose now is that original factors are only used in the highest stage of production. That's of course not the case in the real world, but it doesn't matter. There's more precisely, there is spending on original factors only in the highest stage of production. I will assume that all original factors in the later stages are being owned by the entrepreneurs themselves, so they don't need to buy them. Okay. So if this is the case, then it's clear that there must be arbitrage processes similar to the ones that we analyzed just before, arbitrage through investment, between the different stages of production. Here, for example, so in this stage of production, we earn a 20% return on investment. Okay. Here we have 20%, so we have 20 divided by 100 equals 20%. Here we have 30 divided by 40, which is 75%. Okay. So you get a very different return on investment, so what will happen in such a case? Well, the same thing that we analyzed before. Right. So money will be, capital will be taken out of that stage of production and invested here. Okay. Until the return on investment is the same in all stages of production. And in that case, we say that the producers are coordinated amongst themselves. Why are they coordinated amongst themselves? Well, because this arbitrage process is not simply a financial thing, it actually coordinates physical activities. We have to ask ourselves, why is it the case that the entrepreneurs operating in that stage earn such a higher return? Why is this so? Well, because the goods that they create, the intermediate goods, for example, are in relatively short supply. So the entrepreneurs operating here, well, they bid them away, right? All of them need them desperately, so they are ready to pay very high prices. So this type of good is in short supply, it's lacking. Whereas this type of good is in relatively large supply. So what happens now through the arbitrage process is that less of that good is being produced and more of that. And this smooths out the production process. Here we have a bottleneck right now here. It's not enough of this good. And the arbitrage process creates a situation in which the producers are coordinated amongst themselves. Each supplier provides exactly the quantity needed by the guys in the following stage of production. And so arbitrage is not just a financial thing that equalizes the return on an investment. It's essential to coordinate the division of labor within a market economy without a central plan. tells those entrepreneurs, well, you guys do this and you do this, right? Everybody follows just his economic calculus of the expected return, and the consequence is that each provides exactly the services needed by consumers and needed by other producers. So they are coordinated with one another. And in the case in which the return on investment is exactly the same in all stages, we speak of a situation of general equilibrium. And in general equilibrium, by definition, we have a situation of perfect coordination between the market participants. So, arbitrage, right, creates coordination between producers and consumers, but most importantly, especially, between the different producers involved in the same supply chain. Okay. Now let's construct a situation of general equilibrium. So let's say over here 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009. So this represents a situation of general equilibrium because we earn exactly about 15% in each stage of production. And here we invest 90, we have a revenue of 104, so net revenue of 14 divided by 90, approximately equal to 15%. Same thing here, we earn 60, an initial investment of 104, it's approximately 15%, etc., etc. Okay, everywhere 15%. So we have the time structure of production in equilibrium. Why do we focus on equilibrium? Equilibrium, of course, never exists in the real world. Well, it's essentially a pedagogical tool, right? It's a pedagogical tool because it allows us to illustrate, give simple numerical illustrations. That's biology. Right? And it does not vitiate the conclusions, all the conclusions that we derive from it, but it would lead me too far to explain this. So it's a methodological part. We just believe me. Okay, we can focus on a general equilibrium situation because of pedagogical motivations. Right? That's not representative of a market economy. The market economy is in constant movement, constant adjustment. But we do this only for pedagogical purposes. Okay, so we have here this time-consuming production process extended through 4 years, and so we have 4 different stages of production: A, B, C, D. A being the consumer goods stage of production, and B, C, D being producer goods production processes. Now, what does process D do, or what do the companies engaged in the stage D do in between 2006 and 2007? Same thing, exactly. Because we have general equilibrium, it's a static situation, right? So they do the same thing. So in 2006, between 2006 and 2007, the D people, that say they have a revenue of 104, they reinvest out of this revenue, they reinvest a part, right? So they save and reinvest 90 units. Right? In 2007, they were selling in for 104. Why do they sell again for 104? Because the C people, at the end of 2007, they had their revenue of 120, so they again reinvest out of that revenue 104. They save the larger part of their revenue and reinvest it. And at the end of 2008, the B people will, the A people will spend 138 units on the product of B, so the B people will reinvest 120 units So this will create revenue for the C companies. Okay? And then, of course, the same thing happens again and again. So we do this. So we do 90 and 4, 20, 57. And here again 90, 120. 90, 104. 120. 138, 157. And to complete the whole thing, we have here 90, 104, 120, 38, and 157. So the point then is, and therefore I did this, is that in any single period, between 2007 and 2008, all production processes occur simultaneously. But there was also a question that Professor Foldvary asked me yesterday. I said, no, but during each period of time, all production processes occur simultaneously. That's true. In each period between 2008 and 2009, there's an A process and a B process, and a C process and a D process. That's correct. But what is crucial, of course, that they do not they are not involved in the same line, the same supply line, right? The D process occurring between 2008 and 2009 is not the one that creates the consumer goods. Right? It's the one that creates consumer goods later, a couple of years down the road. And so they occur at the same point of time, but don't serve the same supply chain. That's very important. Now, another thing that is relevant, and this is the one that we will focus on now, is that all of the payments that occur throughout time actually also are being made at the same point of time. So here, for example, in 2009, we have all these payments that are being made at the same time. This is our aggregate expenditure. So we have aggregate spending in 2009 is equal to 157 plus 134, 38 plus 120 plus 104 plus 90 equals 611. Okay. This is our aggregate spending. Of course, in this economy, we see then that consumer expenditure, as I've explained to you, I've shown to you yesterday with the help of national accounting statistics, is a part, in my example, in my numerical example, it's particularly small, right? It's just a quarter of aggregate spending. Okay, so what I'll do now is to analyze those spending relations in somewhat more detail, and we'll then so characterize this equilibrium with a couple of key figures, and then analyze the impact of savings-induced growth on the structure of production. Okay. Cool. Okay. So I need to get rid of some of this here. Okay, I'll take this away.
Well, the total is 604.
The 604?
Yes. It's not 611. 609.
609. Okay. Okay. Thank you. So then you substitute this here. Okay. I always screw up at the consumer expenditure, right? It's a carefully prepared numerical example. So it's 159. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So let's characterize the structure of production with the help of a couple of key figures. Oh, wait. So we have here what we will call our initial equilibrium. And then we get a final equilibrium after the increase of savings will take place, and then we have a transition period. So n is the number of stages. I is the interest rate, which in general equilibrium is identical with the return on investment, the return on capital earned in each stage. Okay? So the number of stages here is 4, and the return on capital is 15%. That is our interest rate. Then we have aggregate spending, 611 units of money. We have savings, and savings in our example is equal to investment. That is what follows now. I will abstract from all difficulties resulting from changing monetary conditions. Okay. We assume that there's neither a variation of the money supply nor a variation in the demand for money. So people don't hoard more money than before. This hoard, they always keep the same amount of money, they always spend the same amount of money. So this spending will always be the same. Okay. And because there's no hoarding or dishoarding going on, every single euro that is being saved is also invested. Right? Because, so this one, for example, has 138 revenue. Right? So that's its revenue. That's the owner of the company can spend this revenue on consumption. He can invest it, and he can add it to his cash balance. That is, he can hoard that money. Okay. Now, I suppose that he does not hoard. So everything that he earns is either spent on consumer goods or is spent on producer goods. Okay. So, what is the total investment spending? Well, it's 611 minus 159, so we have 453. 52. Consumer expenditure is, as we have seen, 159. Okay, then there are a few other things that we can add here, which will be important. First of all, because we are maybe also later interested in the real impact of production, we need to have some index of physical production. So our index of physical production let's say we'll take here 318. This is an index because we produce very different goods and we cannot add up chairs to lamps and so on, so we need to have an index. And I use this figure here, 318, because it can be easily divided by 159. Okay, so that's the main point. It can be anything, right? The index can be anywhere. What is important is the variation of the index. So this is just arbitrary. And it allows us to calculate the price level. The price level this year is 50 cents. Why? Because we have a spending of 159 units of money on consumer goods, and we create 318 units of consumer goods, so this gives us an average price of 50 cents. Okay, very simple thing. Okay, then we can introduce a figure for the GDP. GDP is equal to consumer expenditure plus gross capital formation plus government expenditure plus exports minus imports. And We make things very simple here because we're really just interested on the impact of growth. So we assume that there's no foreign country, like we're reasoning here for the world economy or something, right? There's no government. It's an idealized world. And to make things simple, more simple still, we assume also there's no gross capital formation. That we always operate with the same amount of tools, or there's just transformation of goods into intermediate goods, no equation of tools. So in that case, in this simplified setting then, GDP is equal to consumer expenditure. So our GDP is 159 units of money. Again, so this is of course not the case in the real world, but we are only interested in the impact of savings on GDP figures. Okay, that's what we want to study. And then we have the variation of real GDP, so this is nominal GDP, and here we have real GDP. And the variation of, so we cannot calculate GDP, an absolute figure for the real GDP, but only the variation of the real GDP. Now the variation of the real GDP in the initial equilibrium, which repeats itself again and again, is of course zero. Right? Real GDP doesn't vary. Right? It's 0%. How do we calculate the variation of real GDP? Is equal to the variation of nominal GDP minus the variation of the price level. Okay? So in this initial equilibrium, the nominal GDP does not vary. It's always 159, right? So GDP new minus GDP old minus price new price old. So this is equal in our initial situation 159 minus 159 minus 50 cents minus 50 cents divided by 159. So this is 0, this is also 0. Therefore, real GDP does not vary. It's 0. Okay? Okay. So now we get to things that are really interesting. We ask ourselves, what happens if savings increase? So we get an increase on the market for our capital, which was in an initial equilibrium here, 15%. 452. And now savings increase. We get a new equilibrium. Let's say in which the interest rate is 2 and the total amount of money saved is 518. What's going to take place now? Well, one thing will not change, and this is aggregate expenditure. Because monetary conditions have not changed. So we still spend the same amount of money as before. And the money supply hasn't changed. People still hoard the same amount of money. So they always spend the same amount of money, 611 units of money. Why do we make this assumption? Not only for convenience sake, not only to compare things, compare the initial equilibrium with the new equilibrium, but also to stress that the message of the classical economists that growth processes have nothing to do with variations of aggregate spending. They have nothing to do with the price level. We'll see this in a minute. Okay, so in the new equilibrium we have therefore a 2% interest rate, and we have 518 units of savings and investment. What does this mean for consumer expenditure? Well, consumer expenditure must decline, right? So if out of the global revenue of 611, overall revenue of 611, we save and invest 518, then we spend only 93 on consumer goods. Now the Keynesians get nervous. They say, well, this is all nonsense. How can investment increase if consumer expenditure diminishes? The Austrian answer to this is the following. And we start from this process here. And move toward a new equilibrium, which we spend 93 units of money here. And the consumer goods industries therefore spend 91 units of approximately of money on the goods that they buy from their suppliers. Why 91? Well, because this gives us a return on capital of approximately 2%. Okay. So then here we spend about 89, and here about 87, here about 85. And then what happens is that we add two new stages. Right? It's an extension of the structure of production. 84 and 82. Okay. So we have the same story that we analyzed yesterday with the fisherman. The fisherman saves more, and he reduces his consumption, he saves more, and therefore is able to extend his overall production process. So the structure of production gets longer. And we add additional stages. Now, again, there are lots of things to be said about this. It's not necessarily the case that you add stages, let's say, E and F here. Right? It can also be that the new stages are being inserted somewhere in the middle. Various things are possible. Okay, so the whole structure of production becomes longer. And so if we add up these figures, 91, 89, 87, 85, 84, 82, this adds up to 518 in contrast to 93 consumer expenditure. So the very first thing that we see here is that indeed, Adam Smith is, so to say, vindicated by this numerical example. It is possible to operate, for the economy to absorb a large amount of savings, even though consumer expenditure has diminished. And if you think this through, and we could make various numerical simulations now, but we won't do this. In fact, the amount of savings that the economy can absorb is in principle unlimited. What is necessary is that the interest rate diminish sufficiently to a sufficiently small amount of money. If the interest rate diminishes, let's say, to 0.001% or something like this, right, then you can possibly, out of the 611, you can save and invest 600 units of money. So a very tiny amount of consumer expenditure can support a structure of production that is huge. Okay, so we have here an increased number of stages, 6. Structure of production is lengthened from 4 to 6. And this, ladies and gentlemen, leads to an adjustment here. It means a longer structure of production means, as we have seen yesterday, that we can churn out now with the same amount of labor as before and the same amount of raw materials, we can churn out more consumer goods. Okay? So we take a new number, I take a number that I can easily calculate, 465. It's not important that this be 465 or 434. What is relevant is that this number is larger than this. And it is larger because there are more stages. Okay? This is necessarily the case. Now, what does this mean? We spend less money on consumer goods, but we get more real stuff for it. Right? Before we spent 159 to buy 318 units of product, now we spend 93 and we get in exchange 465. So what does this mean for the price level? Well, the price is now 4, we spend 93 divided by 465 is equal to 20 cents. So the price level diminishes And at this lower price level, we turn over a larger amount of real consumer goods. This brings us then to a short remark about one of the general confusions in Keynesian economics, the permanent confusion between real and nominal variables. It's not because consumer monetary expenditure diminishes that real consumption is not the case. In the new structure of production, less people are employed here, but these consumer goods industries use more tools and so on, more intermediate products being created throughout the longer production chain. And so there are, with less people being employed here, they are more productive. The fisherman, before he created his net, he just spent the entire day on fishing. After having created the net, well, he spends just 1 day out of 10 on fishing. So what is our nominal GDP? Nominal GDP plummets to 93. A catastrophe, they say the Keynesians. Right? But what happens to real GDP? Real GDP actually increases. Right? So if we calculate this here now, right, we have 93 minus 159 divided by 159. And we have here 20 cents minus 50 cents divided by 50 cents. So this is equal, I think, to about 41%. This is minus 41, minus 41% decline of nominal GDP. But the price level diminishes by 60%. And so we get real growth of 90%. I think I'm running out of time, right? Okay, so I won't talk about the transition period, it was very interesting, but okay, we'll leave this aside. What I will do is to talk very briefly about this thing, right? The same process that we have analyzed now in one direction can also, of course, occur in the opposite direction, right? I said yesterday the fisherman can decide not to renew his net. People in this economy can decide to save less. So they go back maybe from the new equilibrium, in which they save 500 megawatt to a new equilibrium in which they save only 552. So then exactly the opposite would occur. We move from here to there, and the structure of production would become less physically productive. So as a consequence, real GDP would diminish, even though nominal GDP increases. This is a typical result. In an economy in which monetary conditions are fairly stable, real GDP and nominal GDP move in opposite directions. In our economies in the 20th century, they always move in the same direction because we have constant increases of nominal GDP, because we have constant inflation. Okay. We can conclude on the paradox of savings. So Keynes is wrong, right? Is wrong on all accounts. It's the first thing to see. It is, of course, possible. In some cases, we cannot generalize a truth that holds for an individual. We cannot generalize it for the economy as a whole. Okay? But not here. Not in the case of savings. Savings not only enrich the saver individually, they enrich society as a whole. Right? Because these savings are material, instrumental in creating a longer structure of production, which then operates at a lower level of overall expenditure, at a lower price level, but in which the companies are just as profitable as they would be at a higher level of monetary expenditure. Okay. So where is the error in Keynes' reasoning? Well, the funny thing is that Keynes actually has fallen prey to the very same error that he denounces or that he sees in the classical economists. In the eyes of Keynes, the classical economists commit the fallacy of composition. They generalize a truth that holds true for an individual to hold true for the economy as a whole. But he himself commits this fallacy. Why is this so? Because he generalizes a difficulty that would hold true for an individual company. Let's say if there is a lack of consumer or client expenditure on the products of an individual company, only on that company, then it will not be possible for the company to get out of this. Right? Because let's say before we were operating, we were having a revenue of 138, and now we have an expenditure of 120, and now the expenditure on our product plummets to 110. What can we do in that case? Well, we can close shop. Right? Because what we would have to do in order to become profitable again is to say to our suppliers, to our employees, suppliers and so on, have to say, look friends, we can no longer operate as before. Our revenues have plummeted. You need to work now for much less than before. We have to cut your salaries. We have to cut the prices of your supplies. And then they will look at him and say, we'll just go elsewhere. We'll sell our products to somebody else. Why can they do this? Because these difficulties only concern this one company. Its revenues have fallen, but not the revenues of the other companies. So why should the suppliers accept, let's say, 50% cut there, if they only have to accept a 10% cut elsewhere? Okay, so the company will go out of business. But that's not the case if there is a general reduction of consumer expenditure that hits all companies and all suppliers throughout the time structure of production. Because then all employers will have to create a general assembly of their employees and their suppliers and say, look friends, times have changed. We all need to fasten our belly, our curve, right, and work for lower monetary revenues. And then guess what? They won't do this because there's nowhere else that they can charge. Right? So everybody in that case would accept a cut of monetary revenue, which would eventually, not as we have seen, amount to a cut in real revenue. Right? So what Keynes does with the story of the paradox of savings is to generalize a problem that exists only for individual companies in an environment in which the other companies still operate as before. But if all companies are confronted to lower expenditure, then the problem does not exist. Then entrepreneurs can cut costs. They can cut expenditure on the effect of production. Everywhere. Okay? So Keynes is wrong on all accounts, and we are happy to conclude this lecture.
Can you explain why you have to extend the stages of production in the case?
Because you can extend the structure of production because there are more savings available. Before why did we have to stop here when we didn't have more savings? Right? It would still have, there were certainly technological ideas that would have allowed us to extend the structure of production further, but there were not enough savings available to do this. Now, because we have more savings, we can put these additional investment ideas into practice. Okay, therefore, the structure of production always follows the amount of capital available. It gets longer.
Thank you. I think sorry about the schedule. I think the large lecture for the next one is start now 10:45. Okay, so let's move back to upstairs.
It's the last one.
Oh, another small group.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Another small group. Okay. If in that case we can be a little bit flexible, let's have a 5-minute break.
After lunch.
And then this the lecture and the title already posted on the door already, so you can go take a look. A little adjustment. So not exactly the same as your schedule.